Hi, in my last videos, we were talking something about homeostasis. I defined what is homeostasis, the maintenance of internal equilibrium within the body. And, and when I say homeostasis, I mentioned two words. One is internal environment and external environment. External environment is the space which is surrounding us, the environment, the atmosphere, anything outside the body, you call it external environment. Internal environment, that is nothing but the atmosphere, the environment in which the organ is there inside our body. These organs you call visceral organs. The space surrounding these organs, they constitute the internal environment. So what we saw in the last videos, a change in the external environment as well as a change in the internal environment, the body cannot accept. For the normal functioning of the organs inside our body, they need a conducive environment, an environment in which they can function well. And there are a lot of parameters we told which are constantly changing inside and outside our body. Our body will recognize all these changes in the environment and they'll try to bring back to normal so that the organs can function well. These adjustments are done in coordination with many organs inside. They work as a team actually. And we see some of the examples in which a temperature change outside the body, and the other example I gave was the changes in the blood glucose level or sugar level. So one, a change in the external environment, we talked about the temperature changes, how the body tries to maintain its internal temperature, and we call it thermoregulation. The next example in which the blood glucose level increases or decreases, all the organs require a glucose. It should not be very high, it should not be very low. A change in this blood glucose level, an increase or decrease, how they are brought back to normal by the interaction of some of the organs we saw. Thermoregulation or control of temperature or maintenance of internal temperature to 37 degree, that's what we talked. The nervous system involved. The nervous system, I told, it is something like a physical connection in which the parts which are involved in maintaining the internal temperature, they are physically connected, for example, by nerves. You can call it something like a wired connection. All the organs, or most of the organs which are involved, they are physically connected through nerves. Blood glucose regulation, I told, endocrine system is involved, produces hormones. These are secretions from the organs, and these hormones are poured into the blood. The blood carries this hormone, and various organs, they respond to the hormones which are coming to them through blood. The hormone either increases the blood sugar or decreases the blood sugar depending upon the situation. And here, if you see, the endocrine organ produces hormone. The hormone only goes through the blood, travels through the blood or transported through the blood. There is no physical connection. For example, in the glucose control, we talked about pancreas, we talked about glucagon, and we talked about insulin. One hormone increases the blood sugar, another hormone reduces the blood sugar. This is what we saw. And the point to remember is there is no physical connection, no nervous system is involved. It is only hormones transported through blood. We are going to talk something about the components of this homeostasis. When I say components, the organs which are involved, how they are integrated, how they work in coordination with each other as a teamwork. So these are called the components of homeostasis. If you take a temperature which is more outside, who receives this who feels the temperature is high, how this information is sent and to where it is sent, and what happens the place where the information is received and what this receiving center does. Nervous system control and the thermoregulations. What are the components of this thermoregulation? There are three components. One is a sensor, second is a control center, third is an effector. So this is called sensor, control center, effector concept. The other mechanism or control of glucose, blood glucose level, which I said done by hormonal control. What is the mechanism by which blood glucose level is maintained? And this mechanism is called feedback mechanism. The first component, sensor. What is sensor? The name itself shows it senses a difference. That is why it is called a sensor. An organ or a device which detects a change is called a sensor. Here, the change is increase or decrease in temperature. And which part of the body detects this change is skin. So, skin is a sensor. In the skin, you have various receptors which detect changes, touch, pressure, temperature, all this. So, skin is a sensory organ which detects a change in the external atmosphere. It may be a temperature, it may be a touch, it may be a pressure. So, skin is one of the sensory organs in our body. The skin detects the change in the temperature and it sends a message in the form of an impulse through nerve fiber. Okay, an impulse is nothing but a change in the electrical activity of the nerves, and this impulse travels through the nerve fiber. So you can simply say an impulse is nothing but a message which is traveling through the nerve fiber. Because this nerve fiber taking a sensory impulse, in the sense it is taking a message. The message is there is a change in the temperature outside. So this is temperature is a sensation and skin is a sensory organ. So this nerve fiber which is going to the brain, you call it as a sensory nerve because it takes a sensory message to the brain. It is called a sensory limb. It is going towards the brain, so it is otherwise called afferent limb. So this nerve fiber is otherwise called afferent limb or sensory limb. What are the other sensory organs? Apart from skin, you have the eyes, the ears, the nose, and tongue. So, what is the function of these organs? Eyes, vision, ears, hearing, nose, smell, and tongue, taste. These senses, you call it special senses. That is about the sensor. Next component is the message is sent to the brain. You know, the brain centers or something like a central processing unit in a computer. So they are called control centers or controlling organ. That is the next component of this homeostasis. It is called as a higher center if it is there in the brain. It may be a lower center if it is in the spinal cord. So the function of this control center or control organ is receiving the sensory message, sensory impulse through the sensory nerve from the sensors and analyzing it, what happens, increase or decrease, and next it processes the impulse and decides what to do. That is why it is called a control center or controlling organ. It will decide if the temperature outside is very low, I have to increase the temperature. If the temperature outside is very high, then I have to lose temperature. So one is called conservation of temperature, another is called losing temperature. Because it maintains a temperature inside at a particular set point, which is 37 degree, this center is called controlling center. This is the next component of homeostasis. The part which is involved in the brain controlling this temperature fluctuation, it is there in the hypothalamus. Because hypothalamus has got this temperature regulatory center, you call it thermoregulatory centers. Now, after analyzing the sensory impulse, an increase in temperature or decrease in temperature, it decides what to do. For example, if the temperature is very high outside, the inside temperature should be reduced, so it sends impulses or messages through nerves again to the blood vessel walls. Now what happens? It produces relaxation of the blood vessels. More blood goes outside. It induces or stimulates the sweat glands, and through the sweat and more blood flowing through the blood vessels, the heat is lost. This is during increased temperature outside. If the temperature is less or very cold, then more blood should not go to the periphery, to outside from within. So what really happens? It sends impulses to the blood vessel wall and the blood vessel shrinks. Now less blood goes outside to the periphery, so naturally heat is conserved, heat is not lost. It also sends impulses to the skeletal muscles and you start shivering. So, depending upon the condition, a message is sent to the blood vessel, either vasodilatation, increase in diameter, or vasoconstriction, decrease in diameter of the blood vessel is done. These messages are sent to the organs. The organs which are receiving the messages are the blood vessel wall, the sweat gland, the skeletal muscle. That means an effect is produced. These organs respond to the orders given by the controlling center. They produce an effect. The third component is the effector. What are these effector? The organs which produce an effect, they are effectors. They carry out the orders from the control center. Because they produce an effect, vasoconstriction or vasodilatation, these effects are produced. So these organs are called effector organs. Now, the nerve fiber which carries impulses from the brain to these effector organs, that nerve fiber is called efferent nerve. Now, an activity is produced, constriction or dilatation or skeletal muscle contraction, relaxation. These are all motor activities. Something like some movement is produced, some effect is produced. So, because a motor activity is the result of this impulse, the motor impulse, you call this as a motor nerve, and this limb is called a motor limb, otherwise called efferent limb. The skin takes a sensory impulse, a sensor. The brain sends impulse to the organs, the effector organs. All these things you do not do. It happens automatically because the inside of our body, the internal environment should be kept in a particular temperature. So all these activities temperature by the skin, taking this information to the brain sending information to the effector organs. All these things happen automatically. You are not controlling it, you are not doing it, and you are not voluntarily doing it. It happens without your knowledge, naturally. This is called an involuntary action. You can even call it a reflex action. Why this is involuntary? Because the body does not want to take time. This is an emergency. If time is spent in processing, in sensing, and deciding everything, then you may damage the organs. The organs may not function well. So, every minute, this involuntary action is taking place. Well, we know the homeostasis, the internal equilibrium. There are two systems which are involved in maintaining the internal balance or homeostasis. One is the nervous system, the other one is the endocrine system. In this video, we saw the role of nervous system in maintaining the temperature or in maintaining the homeostasis. In the next video, we will talk something about the endocrine part of the homeostasis, in which the mechanism involved is an interesting mechanism, namely a feedback mechanism. So that's all in this video. We'll meet again in the next clip and we will talk something about the feedback mechanism. Thank you.